Hey everyone.
Hello. We decided to do another mix breakdown because this is fun. If you've not seen our mix breakdown for Carried Away, we suggest you go check that out. And if you have, then welcome back. It's good to have you.
This time we're going to go over The Thread, our most recent release. First of all, thank you so much for the reception on the track so far. We've been hearing awesome things. You guys have been super generous about the track, so we really appreciate that. Without further ado, we are gonna hop in on the track. Is this kick drum?
Although I guess we didn't really introduce ourselves.
Oh yeah,
We're the Keymakers.
we are the Keymakers. I'm Red.
I'm Rome.
We're brothers.
We grew up together.
Rome like the city, red like the
Color. Yes.
Rojo.
Why are you saying that?
Just for the friends down south in
Oh, Rojo
East.
with a J. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. I was thinking like North Hollywood, NoHo. Red Hollywood, Rojo. So fun fact about this song. So this is another track that Red started. He worked on it by himself before I ever got on board. So I'm just gonna play a quick interview. What is the first sound you worked on?
First one I made was the ARP. This is soloed. Take a brief intermission. Basically, it all started as one arpeggio. We can see there's two layers here, well, three actually, but this top one, ARP 2, this is just an octave, so it's just the same thing playing but one octave higher. But this guy, low ARP and ARP 1, started on the same channel, and it was too complicated, a little bit too muddy, so we separated it for two reasons. One, because we wanted to affect them differently, so all of these effects that are on them. Oops. Oh yeah, I guess they're all just right there. Mostly this effect rack, we had to freeze it just for CPU space. This auto filter and things like that, as it's automated throughout the track, differs from what we're doing with the higher one, which, as you can see, we have some convolution reverb and a different auto filter in a different spot, moving in different ways throughout the track.
Yeah, and one thing that he talked about with the drop, like the octave that we added. So one cool thing we really wanted to do with that to kind of bring it out was just throw in some little taste, a little preview beforehand. So you have the low part, and just tease it a little bit. So when it comes in, you're ready for it. You want it, it's there for you.
Next up, we got big old juicy bass.
Yeah, so we started with the bass for Carried Away, and we decided not to do that this time. But you can only go so far without the bass in a track, and I think we've gone about as far as we can.
It's 100% true what this man is saying. So we can see, right off the bat, there's two layers. I'm going to educate myself a little bit here because I don't necessarily remember what each one is doing.
Sometimes we label things like high bass or top bass, low bass. Sometimes we just do bass 1 and bass 2. You can probably guess which one is easier to work with as we go.
Yeah, so here we have ourselves a case of not labeling them high and low bass. But we do have the low on bass 1, the high on bass 2. and they're actually the same patch, same plugin, both in Serum, and because the high bass and the low bass are, literally the same patch, there's a bunch of EQing that had to happen in terms of making sure that they're not like playing the same frequency at the same time, because then you run into a whole world of phase issues. You can tell we kind of use them tastefully throughout the beginning part of the track. These are both still growing, and then in that first drop, we're only using one bass. We only really need one because we can give it back to the high frequency a little bit. You can see with that auto filter, as I kind of click around, you can see it grows as it gets to the drop. But then it also gives us so much more power on the second drop because we've EQ'd it responsibly. So we're not getting a lot of clash. So then when we do add those higher frequencies, like we're getting in bass 2, it's like, whoop-ah, just a whole bunch of frequencies that people didn't know they were missing in the first drop that now they have, and they're like, oh.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was trying to say with the arpeggio before. It's like you don't really need a high arp when you have the low arp going, but once it comes in, you're like, okay, this is so much more pleasing. So as we build tracks, we really do like to do that. Just that is build them and keep the listener wanting more and also getting more. Yeah, let's keep going.
Next is the sub. This guy is not frozen because he plays nice with the CPU. We can actually pull up this silent patch and play it soloed for you. Nah, we won't get that yet.
We've been saying no to that question for months.
So, there's really not much to see here.
One cool thing about this drop is we're just listening to a solo. You can hear it stays on that one note for a while. Right when it hits. Comes back down to it. So when the earlier version of this song, it was actually staying in the same chord progression that had happened throughout it. And we thought it really needed something to set the tone of the drop, kind of reshape things, and then here you get what you want. So that switch of the chord there means a lot more because of what we did with the 8 bars previously. And more rolling.
This poor computer. The synth on this, as you'll see in Carried Away, there was a lot of synth work that we did in that. There's not a ton of synth work that we did, but that's, as far as time we spent on it, it's probably about equal because these elements don't happen too often throughout the track, but that's all the more reason they have to be, special when they do happen. So we'll go through each synth element real quick, just soloing them. This one is the one we keep doing with our fingers whenever the drop happens.
And in terms of the timeline, these were both additions relatively late into the production of this song. We had the bass line, we had most of it in play, and the writing was already there too. So we had the entire structure and narrative of the song and felt that it needed a little bit more in terms of things going on, things to distract from the constant bass and arc that we have, and especially in the verses to kind of complement the vocal structure and the voice and what we're doing there. So it was really important to, in terms of fleshing this song out, to add some, Keymaker-esque melodies to kind of get everything going.
This one in the red here is that. And then we'll check out these yellow guys here. They actually mirror each other in this instance, so we'll solo both of them. We'll get everything here.
It's always the same, and I can't escape it. Was it all in my head, or something I said? I'm stuck on the edge, just holding on to the thread that you pull it.
Yeah, so those guys, they're not the blockbuster of the track, but they add so much color and so much texture to that second hook. That, like Rome was saying, you know, we had the track kind of structured out, and then we were sitting down and listening to it and saying, does it get dry here? You know, what can we kind of do to continue to push and continue to keep the track living and breathing? Then these ones, they're so aptly named Candy Highs. They're kind of just like ear candy. They follow the exact same MIDI as the bass in the sub, so we'll solo all of them together. But these guys are like hard to hear in the mix until you hear them, and then you're like, oh, those are there. So actually, let's just play the bass without them. Nope, that's on. All right, so we'll play it without them. And I'll click them on. Just a tiny little shimmer. This is the last synth here. It's the it's definitely not, doesn't fit into the characteristics that we were describing for the other ones. This one's more of a kind of hit you right in the face melody. But it was originally a bass, and it was just doing something really crazy and wacky. And I suspect the bass notes are supposed to be played much lower, but we tried them super high, and it ended up being a cool little, I don't know, well, I'll just play it. So intense.
Like, it's crazy. It's chaotic. It's that. I mean, this is one of those things that when the narrative of the song really matches the production, at least as we see it, as we understand it, because there's so much tension building in this song, and there's so much struggle for control, and this is the final drop. This is when everything comes together. This is when everything comes to a head, and yeah, you gotta have something there sonically that really lets you feel that release, lets you really get into it. And I think this, in combination with all the percussion, everything else we have going on, and some of the vocal stuff we have, it really speaks to that culmination.
One hundo P.
Hundo P, what it be?
These pads is the next element here. There's not a tremendous amount to see here. You know, the song has a chord progression, and these pads sort of establish
the
that.
song has a chord progression. You heard it here first, guys.
The chord progression of the song, these pads work really to kind of establish that.
Atmosphere.
Atmosphere, kind of a background. We'll play them soloed. So they do have a little bit of movement to them. Oh, I still have the bass solo.
Man, can't let go of the bass.
I was like, this is a lot for some pads.
Yeah, so those are our pads.
Uh-oh. Moving on to the dirty perk. So, for percussion in this track, some people may notice, some people may not, but there is no percussive elements other than the kick until 8 bars into the drop, when we start to introduce the clap. But like we talked about in the Carried Away, walkthrough, we didn't want to just have like one clap, just like on the 2s and the 4s. So we layer some claps here, play a lot with the velocity down here on the bottom with these little lollipops. Yeah, I guess no one else probably calls them that. And then, we throw in the odd one every once in a while to kind of keep things fresh, keep it sounding human. Here are the claps soloed.
And then, you'll see it gets a little bit more dynamic as we go, as things are building. And actually, this is a good example of what I was talking about with the high melody, because it's not just the high melody coming in at this section, it's also the clap and the first percussion that's different than what we've been hearing the entire song. So it's like teasing it with those little notes before. It's almost like preparing the listener, like we're about to take things up another level. It's like the melody is welcoming the clap. It says, come, join us. Yeah, what you'll hear sometimes when we pause it and play it is the CPU issue that we've come to embrace, I would say.
Yeah.
He doesn't embrace it.
So we'll run through each perk element here relatively quickly, but we can kind of get a gist of what role they're playing. We got some hats here. This is another layer of hats, which comes in when this one kind of dips out. As you can see where those MIDI nodes are. And then we'll add in perk 2 and drum rack. Ideally, this would be perk 1, 2, 3, and 4. But you know how things happen.
In the heat of the moment.
Let me find. My favorite perk in the entire track is this vocal one. We'll see if we can isolate it. Oh yeah. Nope. Oh yeah. It is so fun to put in tonal elements into percussion that kind of just it's vocal, but like no one's gonna call that a vocal, right? So it just kind of it's a creative way to add texture, to add uniqueness, I feel like, to your percussion pool as well. So.
And one thing I want to do is just highlight the percussion in this one melody we were looking at earlier, the way they play off one another. We actually modified the timing of this melody where it hit based on some of the things we did in percussion, and vice versa. We also went in and changed some of the things in the percussion to make sure that they all fit, because we wanted to create this kind of this flow.
Feels good.
Okay. Yeah, what have we not talked about? Obviously, we're always going to have some effects. We have a group of effects, and that really is primarily to make the moments of the song work better. So transitions between the verse and the hook and the drop, taking a drop up another level, things like risers, crashes, cymbals, all of that, all the purple that you see here. Mm-hmm. That's what you really need in order to capitalize on those transition moments.
It really fills the space. I mean, there's not much more to say than what Rome said there, but stuff like this, we'll just play a quick clip of that.
Pow!
Wabang! The drop vocals.
Yeah, so these babies, interesting story behind these guys. I'll start with our dad, when he was talking about one of the mixes of the song and giving some feedback on how we should change it. He was saying it was unclear, it was hard to hear that line that I was saying, or that girl was saying, that woman was saying in the drop. Like whatever she's saying, yeah, I did you wrong, yeah, something. It's hard to hear her. And I informed him that, one, that those are my vocals, and two, they're not really supposed to be saying anything. I wanted to leave them open to interpretation is one half, and the other half, which is maybe a bit more honest, is that I never really imagined them as words. It was just something that this sound that kind of came to me one night we were working on it. May have been some herbs involved, and I don't know, I was hearing this sound, I was hearing these syllables over this section, and it didn't really matter at the time whether they made sense or not. I just wanted to record them. And yeah, there's still some effects on it, but the main ones are off. So I'm just gonna play what it sounds like. Yeah, so when you have like 4 of those tracks doing slightly different things, slightly different iterations, there were a ton of effects on all of them, and bring it all together, it obviously sounds very different. Yeah, so we ended up not really caring if it makes sense. We liked the way it sounded. And we threw even more effects on the bus up here, just to bring out the sound we're going for. Some sidechain on it to maybe duck out on the kick hits, because it's really happening in one of the strongest, loudest parts of the song. And then an auto filter on it to bring it down a little bit, because what we had achieved was like such a big sound, and it was kind of just taking too much space up, so we just ducked it out a little bit. I guess the only other thing we haven't talked about is the sax in this song. So this is a song, unlike Carried Away, that I can imagine you might not have even noticed there was sax in it, because it really only happens at this one section towards the end. We call it the breakdown. And it's pretty quiet. It's kind of in the background. You got background vocals going on. Some kind of lead vocals. Initially, we actually had sax right here. There was like a bunch more sax going on, and we just thought it was a little bit too much. So we dialed it back and just gave room for this build to happen. Get back to the drum. So yeah, I think I mentioned this last time, but like we don't just throw sax on there to throw sax on there. If there's a melody that we think it can achieve the best, we'll do it. If we think it's a moment that needs the sax, we'll do it. But it's also about recognizing when, the music without that needs to speak for itself, and just maybe throwing it in as a little bit of ear candy, which is what we did with this song.
Yeah, well, that about sums up our breakdown of the thread. Once again, it's out now. It's available on all of our socials.
Yeah, thanks for the love so far on the song. I'm really glad you're enjoying it.
Thank you so much. Drop a comment below if you have any specific questions about the track. If we have explained something catastrophically wrong and you're an expert and you want to explain it to us, or if you just want to say what's up. Instagram is always the best place to find us, but we're on all of the socials. So yeah, come say what's up. We will be here in a few weeks with another breakdown of another track. But you haven't heard that one yet, so stay tuned.
Thank you. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time. Cheers.